5-Year Mission, the podcast, episode 58.
By now you figured out that this is the 5-Year Mission podcast.
Welcome to another episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast, the only podcast hosted by a band called 5-Year Mission. I'm your host, Chris Spurgeon, and I am...
Chris,
what?
stop.
What?
Do that again, because I heard like a weird bzzz during when you said it.
It's not going to get better than that.
Just do it again.
Just edit that buzz out.
Okay. Welcome to another episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast, the only podcast hosted by a band called 5-Year Mission. My name is Chris Spurgeon. I'll be your host, along with three other intrepid gentlemen. Mike Rittenhouse. Say hi, Mike.
You're right. The first one was better.
I told you. I told you. We also have Noah Butler.
Hey.
The excited Noah Butler, and the equally as excited Patrick O'Connor.
I am intrepid.
Intrepid. See, I used the right word. So this episode, we're going back to the What Are Little Songs Made Of, and we'll be discussing a fine little segment called Who Mourns For Adonais? Yes, Adonius. That's how you
Adonais.
Adonius.
I did extensive research. I'm quite sure. You know, it was. I think I read somewhere that it was derived from Adonis, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard people say that it's pronounced Adonis.
Yeah, but it's Adonius in this case.
Shatner pronounced it Adonis in the episode, I believe.
They call him Adonis in the episode?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of. I remember hearing William Shatner pronounce.
No, he's Apollo in the episode.
He's Apollo. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Another A word.
Yeah, I don't know where Adonius came from.
But Patrick pronounces it Adonius in the song, so that's how I pronounce it.
Well,
Adonais. I did research about it too.
That's I think that's an artistic rendering of the name.
It also fit the meter, like it had the right number of syllables if you pronounce it that way. Artistic license.
I think it's pronounced Mugato.
Exactly.
It's Gumato.
Gumato. Another grand episode where they've given us words that no one says and no one can pronounce. Patrick's the one that wrote this episode. So, Patrick, why don't you...
You wrote the episode?
No, I can't take credit for that.
You wrote the song for the episode. Why don't you...
I can't take the blame for that either.
Give us a quick rundown of what this one's about.
The episode, we've all seen the episode, right? With Apollo and doing God stuff and capturing the Enterprise with a giant green hand of energy and trying to force us to worship him, all that fun stuff.
This is one of those episodes that is kind of bonkers. It's just like one of those weird, who the hell thought of this weirdness kind of episodes.
I think a lot of it had to do with like what sets and, extra pieces they had hanging out at the studio that they could use. And they, just kind of were like, "Oh, here's something we can use."
They just happen to have a set that looked like old Greek, old Greece,
old Greek land,
wherever those Greeks lived.
Mediterranean somewhere.
I really like the main idea in this episode that. The ancient Greek gods could have been, more powerful alien life forms, and that's how all these stories got built around them. That's how they were interpreted as gods back then. I love that kind of thing. Like, I think it is a neat soft idea. Place for that. Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. And in fact, I had like my freshman year in college. There was some mythology class that we were taking, and the professor showed like that entire episode and talked a whole bunch about it. If only I had remembered what his point was and what he said. It's a long time ago. But he did show us that specific episode in its entirety, and connected it to some mythology thing that he was trying to teach us dumb 18-year-olds about.
No, in this case, it was Apollo, and he was alone on this planet, and all the other gods were gone, right? He was like the last one.
Yeah, it's like they had sort of, I think, like ascended to some other higher state of being.
So what was his purpose behind capturing the Enterprise? He was kind of displaying his power, wasn't he? Trying to awe the people, the little people.
He was gaining his energy by having them worship him, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he got his power from worship.
Yeah. His ultimate goal being to ascend himself. Something like that.
I don't remember. I think the other Greek gods like just went somewhere else because no one did worship them. They stopped worshiping them, so they just sort of floated off into the ether. But somehow he stuck around, and
he was the holdout.
Yeah.
I kind of like these episodes where we don't really totally remember what we're talking about. So we just kind of introduce all these suppositions. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
I think he was
we just
a god.
open ourselves to these, to ridicule.
We're gonna get so many emails.
I don't know Star Trek.
No, nobody emails anymore, Noah.
That's true. They just come to your door.
So, Patrick, the version of this song that everyone knows from year 2, which is the last song on the album, that's not the first version of the song that you wrote.
No, actually
the first demo?
I remember this one specifically because it was the first demo I think I gave you guys where you said, it's all right, but try again. Because every other time, and it just kind of come to me, and I, laid it down, brought it in, everybody was good with it, and we just worked on the song, But this particular case, I had to fiddle with it a bit more. And so it originally was all, I think, in 3/4 and kind of slow all the way through. And the idea I had was that there was going to be like a long fade out at the end, sort of Hey Jude style with some kind of refrain. And then after people were saying, well, it's too slow, it's too long, it's kind of plotting, I sped it up and I just kept the intro bit slow like the original version was, and then went into the faster part for the rest of the song. So at that point, the outro idea didn't really work. So then, of course, we did the long intro idea instead.
That is a long intro.
But as Noah was saying, like the episode, Noah wasn't saying the episode is flawed, but it is somewhat flawed. But the ideas of it are interesting. And so it was definitely one that I didn't want to just do a play-by-play of this is what happens in the episode. You know what I mean? It was more about sort of the message and the theme of the episode because that's much more interesting to me than what the actual episode does. You know what I mean? From scene to scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of just the scene that, the image of it that always stuck in my mind was the giant hand, the first thing you see at the beginning, because it's hard to not remember that image. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
giant green hand in space, because it makes no sense whatsoever.
It's right up there with Abraham Lincoln.
Exactly. So, that to me, that had to be the first thing to show up in the song. So that's how it starts.
I think it has a great, that beginning, those first lines, once you've heard it,
it's stuck in my head.
You always associate with that song. Always.
Yeah, always. Yep.
And so everybody listening to the long intro is just waiting for the green hand to show up.
Yeah.
Speaking of the intro, I thought it was really cool the way that was put together. And I hadn't heard any of it until I heard the finished version. And I thought it was really cool because we took a lot of was that the one where we took pieces
sample bits from all the other
songs, and put them in there, and I thought that was really, really a really cool idea.
So there's slowed way down or sped way up or turned backwards.
Yeah.
And this album in particular, I thought year 2 for me was the one where we seemed like we were the most experimental and trying different things, because we kind of laid year 1 down pretty, quickly as we would play it live. Whereas this one, we thought, well, we have a little bit more time to just see what happens and just try things out. And this was sort of the epitome of that.
Yeah.
There's this intro bit that goes on for several minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think I think we had the songs themselves weren't very experimental, but we experimented a lot when we were mixing and recording. Yeah. So I definitely agree with that.
And the thing that I added, so Mike was adding in these bits of sampled bits from other songs on the intro, and I did this early talk to text thing where I took some ideas of dialogue from the episode and sort of typed it in and transcribed it in this early talk to text feature with these odd robotic sounding voices.
Yeah.
And so those are kind of mixed in.
They do sound really robotic, almost like the computer's talking to itself.
It was like lines of dialogue, but then also you took lyrics from like every song.
Yes.
So in those robotic voices, like it includes like at least one lyric from every song. A couple of the songs that has quite a few of them, but they're kind of just all blended in no like random order. We weren't trying to make it any kind of coherency. We were just playing around, sticking them in there wherever we felt like.
It was supposed to be a little trippy, I think, which that intro bit does seem kind of trippy. But I don't remember actually if you started with the samples from the music or if I started with those voices, and then I can't remember which way it worked, but
I don't remember which came first, but I know like at practice and in recording, we were trying to figure out how to start the song because we didn't know if we wanted you to just jump right in with the vocal immediately or if we wanted there to be like to run through the chords a few times. And then it just turned into us like making it longer and longer and adding all this random stuff in.
Yeah.
I know we took like
I had that idea to do the long outro. So I think I naturally sort of gravitated to doing it as a long intro. I just like that idea.
I think it worked really well because it's the very last song on the album. Didn't we split it up into 2 tracks? So that you could skip that long intro.
Yeah.
And I remember we discussed what we were going to do with the first track, whether it was going to be not be listed, which would be weird because then it would just skip a number and you'd think, oh, it's a misprint. Or if we were going to title it like, Prelude to Who Mourns For Adonais or whatever. I think just leaving it as a number with no title, I think works great.
Yeah, I do too. And I really like how it flows. From kind of this really trippy kind of floaty intro into this kind of mellow beginning and then just takes off. And I really like how this song turned out.
Chris, I want to correct something you said earlier. You said that we split that into 2 separate tracks so that you could skip that track.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm gonna correct that to say we split that into 2 separate tracks so that you could play that track on repeat
and not have to hear the rest of it.
Well, yeah, okay, we'll go with that.
But this is one
I stand corrected.
I don't think we rehearsed this one very much before we recorded it. There's always a few of those, but this was one of them, I think. And I remember one of the very last things we recorded before we finished the album was Chris's high vocal harmony part.
Oh my God. I don't think I can do that anymore.
It was really difficult. I remember that was one of the last things we recorded. And what I remember about it was we actually had the wrong mic turned on when we were recording. And so it was actually capturing you from across the room.
Yeah.
And it gave it this really interesting quality though. And I still love hearing that.
That was, I don't know what I was thinking, quite frankly, because you were already really, the vocal was already pretty high and I was already doing a high vocal, and then it just got higher and higher.
I think that I stepped in and I said, do the end of Nowhere Man. Like where Paul sings like the part, but then on the last one he goes really high, and you were already super high, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, I think at the time I don't know if I honestly don't know if I could do it anymore, but at the time it was one of those things where I just kind of went for it and got it, and so it worked. But yeah, it's pretty high vocal there,
and it works great too as like a climactic end to the album, which I love about that.
Yeah, it's a great closer.
It turned out really well, and I didn't know how this was going to turn out.
Well, it has kind of that dissonant last chord too. After it finishes and then it just kind of goes wah.
Yeah, it's like the diminished chord at the end that just kind of trails off.
Which is cool. I really like the way it ends.
And of course, the little bit of trivia that like dissonant major seventh chord or whatever it is that we kind of stretch out and extend there, then we grab that same like chunk and sound and put it at the beginning of the first track on year 3, right? It's at the beginning of the Changeling, right? Yeah. It's like the same actual chunk of audio that we. So it's almost like the one album bleeds into the next, which is super cool.
That was, in fact, I specifically wrote the next one. We'll talk about this later, but I specifically wrote the next one in the same key just so I could make that happen, because I really like the idea of having one fade out and the other one fade in on that same chord.
Yeah. And it's funny because you actually hear that over the course of those 2 albums, you actually hear that part 3 times, because we also sampled it and reversed it and stretched it out over the entire 4 minutes of track 16. It's actually over that as well. So you do hear it 3 times in total.
Isn't it 15? Track 15?
No, track 16, and then Adonais is track 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because then we have the next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the year 3 preview would be track 18.
Yeah, I think the reason I came up with the idea of doing that chord thing from one song to the next one was because nobody had like an ending song and first song back to back before.
Yeah, and I thought it would be the first one.
Fun to do that. Yeah. So I thought it would be fun to do that.
That doesn't happen, and that won't happen any other time, will it?
It happened with me, but I just didn't do anything with it. Didn't it? Wait.
Oh, did it? No.
What was the end of
Chris had the first or he had the last song.
Oh, I had the first and last songs on
year 4.
On year 4, yeah.
Yeah, because I had Private Little War and
For His Head is Hollow.
Yeah, For His Head is Hollow. Yeah,
For His Head is Hollow.
For the World is Hollow.
What's the last song on year 3? Oh no, Noah has that one.
Immunity Syndrome.
Yeah, Syndrome. Immunity Syndrome. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that the end of year 3 was what I had.
Oh, wait, but so Immunity Syndrome would go into Hey Kara, wouldn't it?
I guess technically.
I guess it would.
If it's
album wise,
yeah. And strangely enough, that those aren't in the same key. Usually, all my songs are in the same key, but those 2 are not in the same key
or something.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll make Turnabout Intruder bleed into the cage.
Okay.
All right.
Red track. Good. Now this song, we played it live several times, but it was never one that was in a real regular rotation. I don't think. Right? We maybe played it soon after the release a couple times, and then
too bad because I thought it sounded really good live.
It's a good
obviously
song.
We couldn't do the long intro.
Yeah.
But it was cool because it just came in real mellow, and then it was fun to rock out. I remember.
Yeah. No, I really liked playing it. I think it was more that it was kind of a strain for us to sing it, and so. Yeah, I guess at the end of the set it might be okay at that, but who knows if you're losing your voice by the end of the set or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. Live the vocals were. I mean, recording the vocals were hard enough. Doing them live is another story.
Yeah, but I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed it, especially for this one. Especially the recording process was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't really remember. We didn't play it live that often. I'm on keys on this one. and the key part isn't super complicated. It's mainly just some texture in the background, so that gives me a lot of freedom to be able to do vocals. I don't have to really think too much about what I'm playing. So that's nice. It's always nice when I can just concentrate on the vocals and know that what I'm playing is going to be right. It's not like when I'm on bass and I'm on vocals and I'm like, oh, wait, which one am I supposed to be doing now?
And I had lead guitar on this one, which I rarely am on lead guitar, and I didn't do anything super fancy, but it was way more walky than what I was used to. So it was one that I had to concentrate on and practice, and so I think too, anytime we might have wanted, like on a lark, to go, hey, let's bring that one back, it wasn't one that like a lot of us could just kind of, or at least a lot of us meaning me, just jump right back into and be like, oh, okay, and because I had no muscle memory on it, and I would have had to have completely relearned it from scratch, and so it was that one. It was tough. It's too bad. I really do like that song, and I really like playing it live too. But it was a complicated part for me. So it was one that I would have had to have just really had in my wheelhouse all the time.
Yeah, some songs just work really well live, and other songs not as much. And you learn them for the release or whatever, but then you kind of stick with the ones that work the best. So yeah. I mean, we had Tomorrow's yesterday and This Side of Paradise for mine, so we really didn't need another one very often,
Yeah, I think we played this at Starbase Indie for the release.
Yeah.
And we probably played it at the Mel that time, the same time, because we had the Mel release. We probably played it there, but I don't really remember.
I think we played this at the we played at the Stutz building one time. Remember?
Oh yeah,
playing there, and I think we played it there for some. I don't know why I remember that, but I feel
was
like
right
did.
After Patrick met Savannah, and
yeah.
I remember she came to that show.
Yeah, that was the first time we saw her with Patrick.
And
that's right. And she was just kind of hanging out like behind a partition or something, being really quiet.
I remember that was shortly after y'all had. We met her at Gen Con.
Yeah.
And then y'all had been.
Well, we kind of met her actually at Starbase Indie for the year 2 release.
Oh yeah, that's right. And so
then
by the time we got to the Stutz building, there was like snuggling and baby talk going on, and we're like, "What is going on? What happened?" That was funny.
Well done, Patrick.
Surprise.
Well done.
Well done. Yes. Yeah. You did okay there.
I think it was at Star Trek Las Vegas. She was like leaving us backstage to go fetch sandwiches or something, and I just like turned to Noah and I said, "How did that happen?" Noah said, "I don't know."
Well, this is another song that I think I wrote a really fun bass part for, but it's also, like Noah said, like super complicated, and it's difficult to like it wears me out playing it live. So I'm not too upset that this one kind of fell out of rotation, but I do really like the bass part that I wrote. It's definitely very catchy, like when you hear it by itself.
I also think that because I think we have lots of songs where they're difficult live. I think partly because of how we sort of wrote parts and set them up for the album. But I think like we could have, in hindsight, I think we could have changed a lot of those songs to just make them work for live without sacrificing the essence of the song. For some songs maybe not, but I think there's several songs I think we could have just been like, well, we're just going to simplify this a whole lot so we can play live and have fun with it. But we never tended to do that.
I think a lot of times that actually happens just organically when we play it enough. And
I was going to say, I think we've done that before.
Yeah, you like sacrifice little parts that are just too hard for you to keep up with, that aren't really that important.
I know that I've simplified the bass line on Errand of Mercy more than once when I'm just trying to concentrate on singing, because there's a lot of movement on that the bass part there.
Did you simplify it by like dropping it down a half step?
No,
and then
playing all the wrong notes. Yep, I did do that once. I did. Yeah,
I mean, that's an interesting experiment.
The only
I don't want to thwart your creativity.
that was at Radio, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear it, and I thought I was in the right place, but I was a half step off. That when you sent
do people know this?
Sent that to us.
No one else knows of that video.
Oh dear God.
Tell the folks about it.
Okay.
So when I was editing some songs that we had recorded at Radio that we also had video for, I was listening and I heard Chris's bass on Errand of Mercy. And so I singled out his bass and put it on the video, and I made a bunch of notes about all the things that he did wrong, and then I sent it out to the guys so they could have a laugh. And
I shouldn't laugh because it was pretty much Mike making fun of me, but it was so funny. I felt so stupid.
If it had just been one or two little notes, or like
it was embarrassing,
or maybe one little section where you just happen to be off, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But it was like the entire song. There were only like maybe two like little parts where you were actually on the right note, playing the right thing.
What's funny is you are. You're making all these comments about almost there. No. and then I am in the right place, and you're like, oh, there you go. And then I whiff it again. And you're like, well, almost had it. It was, oh man, it was so fun. It was humiliating, but also really funny.
So back to Adonais. The only other memory I have in working on this song was when we were first learning it, was trying to figure out how to go from the 3/4 to the faster part. I know there was a lot of debate there, and we finally ended up just having Andy count it in. But do you remember us struggling with that, Patrick?
I don't remember that particular struggle, but there have been a lot of struggles over the years. Like I said, the struggle I remembered was from the previous song we talked about, Amok Time, where there was a lot of different arrangements and stuff going on. This one to me seems like we did it pretty quickly.
I remember this transition discussion.
Yeah.
And we were trying to trying to figure out how to make it really smooth without losing any just like going from one to the next, and we ended up just kind of fading out on one and clicking into the next, didn't we?
Yeah
So it wasn't exactly what we had planned, but I think we made the best decision for the song, even though it wasn't exactly what we might have envisioned originally.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a short pause, but it worked.
Yeah, I think it worked.
The alternative was to play the entire song slow in 3/4, and clearly people weren't ready for that.
I don't remember this debate, but I'll take your word for it, and I'm glad that we had it the way we ended up with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the song, the way it turned out.
Me too.
It's cool because it feels like we're just kind of ending it on this slowed down note, and then it just takes off. So it's kind of sneaky, and then we really end that album on kind of a banger, but it doesn't feel like it at the beginning of it. So I like how it's kind of subversive that way. It
kind of surprises people. Yeah. I thought that the whole album, it was like a nice culmination to that album, I thought, overall.
Yeah,
I really like the whole album. So.
Yeah, year 2, I think at the time, I don't know if I'd still say this, but at the time, it was probably it was our second album, but it felt way more cohesive and complete than our first one did, because our first one was kind of dissociated because we weren't really together yet when we were writing the songs. And so year 2, once we had gotten here and finished all the songs, it felt like they all went together and really had this cohesive sound, and and had a flow, and even though we're writing songs separately. So I think this is really the point at which we started figuring out how this whole thing works.
Agreed.
Yes, affirmative.
Well, Patrick, I know at this point on year 2, not only were you trying to outdo Amok Time, which came right before this, but you were also competing with Shore Leave as being, the song that finished the previous album. So, I think you did okay. I wouldn't say that you outdid Shore Leave, but it was a good try.
Actually, the thing that was most different for me between year 1 and 2 is that most of my songs on year 1 were really short. And I noticed how you guys all got twice as much time on the album as I did because all my songs were short. And so this time I was consciously making my songs longer.
See, that's why I wrote Friday's Child on year 3.
That's right.
It's like, you think you're going to have the longest song?
Like 5-Year Mission, and do you like getting exclusive content? You should head over to Patreon right now and visit 5-Year Mission, because we've got all the exclusive content you're not getting on any other social media. There's videos, pictures, sometimes we post news there before we post it anywhere else, behind the scenes of us working on albums and podcasts, and sometimes just pictures of us goofing off that we don't put anywhere else, only on Patreon. And there are many options to choose from. You can be a lieutenant commander, you can be a captain, you can even be an admiral. Each of those comes with their own special perks. One of the perks of being an admiral is that you get to be a producer on this podcast. Currently, our producers are Carol Jones, Jen Tift, Helen Lake, Steve and Frankie Palopoli, Roxy and Becky, Debbie Rinke, and Jim Morehouse. So what are you waiting for? Go to Patreon/5-Year Mission right now. That's the number 5-Year Mission. And sign up. It's that easy.
Captain's log, stardate 3568.1. We are en route to Pollux 4, a planet in the Beta Geminorum system. All conditions normal.
I can see the mess, the tension, and the foreshadow of death. You will follow our rules and regulations to the T. Recognize your rank, follow orders, think.
I'll have the least possible responsibility. What is our ETA to Pollux 4?
We will be entering standard planetary orbit within the next few minutes, Captain.
While we are so similar, the differences are minimal but regrettable.
It's incredible.
Walk to the Forge of Tomorrow.
His food and his drink, they have little substance. What's the matter? Antimatter?
Why does it matter?
Pollux 4, class of type planet, oxygen and nitrogen atmosphere. Sensors indicate no life forms. Approximate age, 4 billion years. No reason for contact. In all respects, quite ordinary, Captain.
He throws a boulder at my head. It bounces off like styrofoam.
Are you of the body?
The slingshot effect could reverse time, theoretically. So I will wait for you. In madness, I will hide. All sections, implement standard orders.
All sections, full automatic.
Do you see that? What is it? Analysis.
Material.
Am I seeing things?
Not unless I am as well.
We learn that they are controlled by fear.
almost as if it needs to grab us. Reverse all engines.
All engines reversed. We are dead still, Captain.
This whole sector has been lionized. And though he winds up in a cage to bow to Trailing, he refused. When asked to serve in heaven, he said he'd rather rule in hell.
Give it all she's got.
Captain, help is unresponsive. The field of energy is within its grasp.
We are trapped.
Are you of the body? Reap the rewards of your insolence. You must accept that you've been killed. Now my heart aches when I think of all you were. This is all like some sort of bad trip. You knew that I would, because I always do. You have nothing left but love.
What is that? Is that a giant hand?
Giant hand in the sky grabs the enterprise from Pollux for flies, pure energy. Giant hand in the sky could crush the enterprise. He addresses the crew pretentiously. As mankind progressed, forgotten those things which gave life meaning. There's an order to things in the universe, and your time has passed. The god Apollo appears, lightning bolts in his hands, welcoming mankind home to Mount Olympus. Light
So that'll do it for Who Mourns for Adonais. You know, but I bet Andy has a few words to say about this song. What do you think, Mike?
Yep. Before we wrap this up, let's hear what Andy has to say. Who mourns for Adonai?
Whatever you want to call him. Adonais.
Adonius.
Yeah, I do remember that we might have thought it was Adonis at first.
Yeah.
And they also never say his name in the episode.
Right. Well, the guy in the episode's name is Apollo.
Right. So who the f is Adonius?
I don't know.
Adonai.
Yeah.
Or Adonis.
Recently I heard somebody on a podcast say that they researched it and it's supposed to be pronounced Adonai.
Oh, sure. But that doesn't fit with the rhyme scheme of the song.
Nope. I know. So it'll never work. So not much to say about the episode. There's a giant green hand. There's a giant god guy. Anything else?
I still love that when he grew, he still had on his tiny little skirt thing with his toga. And he was, I think I made a meme about that too, actually.
Probably.
It's like it's like there's just a photo of him. It's just said, I am the god Apollo, and then like Kirk and Chekhov and I think McCoy, and it's like, and we're the guys that can totally see up your skirt. Adonai was apparently also a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, and it was an elegy on the death of John Keats in 1866. I had to look it up. I don't know. That was just a side thing. But yeah, that was. This is a very strange episode. I mean, obviously, you have the iconic green hand holding the Enterprise in place, and then they get beamed down to the planet. And he's apparently a god, and what's her name decides to stay back with him just because he's a god, even though he was a dick the entire time.
Right?
I mean, it was the 60s, so I mean, I guess like that was the thing. It's like, hey, I'm a tough guy. I'm sure of myself. You know, I can provide for you. You know, because I'm a god. It's like she's like. Well, okay, sure.
Like Lieutenant MacGyver's in Space Seed.
Yeah. Like, that's right.
You're gonna stay with Khan.
You know, I just want to see how this dickhead shakes out. Yeah, I can change him. I swear. No. Don't do that. Don't give yourself a project if you're staying behind on a planet with somebody. No, you don't. You don't need a special project to like keep yourself busy and give yourself a challenge if you're completely leaving your job and your life just to go live with one dude on a planet. Not going to happen. Because I mean, we all see how well it worked out for MacGyver.
Yeah.
Oh God. She was not around during the Wrath of Khan days.
No, she didn't make it. Have you watched all of the Star Trek Continues episodes?
Yeah.
So you saw the one where they brought back Apollo, right?
Mm-hmm. With the original actor and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome. I actually, you know, all of the Star Trek Continues episodes I think are pretty cool, and the fact that they brought back several actors for various episodes. But I thought the one with Apollo was pretty good and a nice kind of bookend to his story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what he'd been up to since then. It's been a while since I've watched that, but the whole episode I haven't watched it for a while now, but I wish I could justify what she did, like by staying behind, or like figure out why she stayed. It's like, ooh, it's fascinating. That's not a reason.
Right.
I've met tons of fascinating people, but I'm not leaving my life to, you know, just hang out with them.
Wasn't she like a specialist in like like
lore.
Yeah, like Greek gods or something like.
Mm-hmm. Like Earth mythology or something along those lines.
Yeah. Whatever.
It's like you can't tell right away that this is a sham and this guy's crazy. Ooh, he can grow. Ooh, wow. Awesome. He can make things appear. Cool. He's magic too. Not who he says he is though.
So do you remember Patrick's first demo?
Slightly. I know we made some changes once we got to it, but I remember wasn't it all kind of just like slow at the beginning, the intro, and it was all in like minor. It was like really depressing. What a way to end an album.
Well, I think that was the point. I think that's the reason that we were all like, maybe give this another try, Patrick.
Maybe add some pep. Yeah, because I mean, the closing song, you got to leave them wanting more.
Yeah,
and like a super sad ballad about a false god is definitely not going to do it.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, Patrick agreed that it was much better after the changes.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I went back. I listened to that original demo also, and man, does it slag! It's just like it's like giant hand in the sky. But so we changed it. It starts out a little mellow, but then it kicks in and basically becomes like kind of a punk song, really.
Yeah, I always compared it like that change up there. I kind of compared it like a Dropkick Murphys-esque kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
because it has that kind of feel to it. I mean, wait, what was what's the drinking song that
By Any Other Name?
Yeah, By Any Other Name. Yeah, that was the other one that had like that's more Dropkick Murphys type influence right there. But yeah, this was kind of the original. It's like I always loved the way it like kicked in and like the way it like has that quick little pause like right after the choruses, so it has you have like a chance to breathe for a second, and then it's like, oh no, we're still back.
I remember the debate as to how to switch between those parts, which of course, I mean, we just had you count it off, but I remember.
Yeah, it was like a quick 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I remember there was like a huge debate as to whether or not we should keep the count in the song.
Yeah,
which I think we did end up leaving it in.
Yeah, because I listened on my phone earlier. I wasn't really listening for like stick clicks or anything like that. But yeah, did we leave the stick clicks in?
I think we did. Of course, now right about now, there's probably like a couple of people screaming at us like, "There's no stick clicks!"
Well, I think it would have been weird to leave them in, considering this is the same album with Arena, right?
This one and Galileo 7 and Arena are on this album,
and both of those had we left the stick clicks in.
Yeah,
so it'd be weird to have yet another song with stick clicks, because I think I think I was amazed that I was able to get away with leaving 2 stick clicks in. I wouldn't think I'd be able to get away with a third stick click count off, even though I love stick click count ins. They're wonderful. Especially with a little bit of reverb, badass. Come on. And we haven't really done this song live all that many times, have we?
We really only played it a handful of times back when the album first came out. I think maybe like 5 or 6 times at the most. So yeah, I none of the rest of us have remembered anything about any of the times we ever played it. So it must have gone
11 years ago.
Yeah, it must have gone well and uneventful.
Yeah, there wasn't really much. All I remember mainly was after the first album, the way we ended the first album and then started year 2, having it end, having this song end on that just kind of like that note that just rings out with a bunch of reverb and all the effects and everything, and then starting year 3, which will be the next episode we wind up recording of Little Songs, starting it off with the Changeling. And if anyone ever notices, year 2 ends exactly like right where year 3 picks up.
Yep.
In case you didn't, did you guys discuss that already?
We did talk about that, yes.
Oh, I'm not original.
But we didn't talk about the fact that we put out that it was like a year and a half between those, and we put out a whole nother EP in between.
I always forget. Well, Tribbles came between 2 and 3, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. That was. Whew. How did we used to do it?
I don't know.
It's ridiculous.
Putting out for the first 4 years, we put out an album a year. And ever since then, it's been like 3, 4, 5 years.
Younger. It just keeps getting longer and longer. Like I'm glad we're working on the final album in the TOS run, because with the way that we've been going, songwriting and recording wise, we wouldn't have another TOS album out until like 2030 at this point.
So any other memories or thoughts or anything about who mourns for
I mean, figuring out how to pronounce it at first, having people at cons try to correct us, and then us having to be like, well, we looked it up and this is what it said. And it's like, well, I looked it up and this is what it said. So pronounce this final song on year 2 however you want. Just know that this is the pronunciation that we found. So don't add us, nerds.
Take us out, Chris.
Well, that's another episode of 5 Year Mission, the podcast. Thank you for joining us. See y'all next time.
Insert cricket sound effect.
I sure want to leave. I sure want to leave.
Thank you for listening to 5 Year Mission, the podcast. If anyone is interested in listening to more of our music, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere that you can listen to music. Just search for 5 Year Mission and we will be the first thing that pops up. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at 5yearmissionband@gmail.com. You can also find us at 5yearmission.net, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
5 Year Mission, the podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com, or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
This has been a Classic Rittenhouse production.
Wait, that was the last episode.
No,
I gotta get some water. I'll be back momentarily.